Okay, recording started, video blog, first one of 2022. I have one prop here. That symbol is a thumbnail. Down there it says national bestseller or something. Anyways, it's just a book, one of the greatest books. I want to mention that person in the index at the very top on page 444, Lacan Jacques Lacan. Sounds French. Anyways, I'm going to disable the camera. Well, should I disable the camera? I don't know. I'm going to go to YouTube on my vlog list. All right, so here's some of the things. I'll just show all of them right away. Should I start from the end and go backwards? So I'm going to switch back to my camera. That 1997 Mel Gibson movie is what sort of set the trend for this winter cap, because he wears that in that movie. That movie is very impactful on the culture as a whole. It seems like complete fantasy, that movie. I remember watching that, I don't know, I would just say around 10 years after it was released, in that would be 2007. So, speaking of millennials, people who are exactly my age, so my birth year, 1988, in the year 1999, I was 11. In the year 2000, I was 12. And in the year 2001, I was 13. So that sort of makes us that makes people my age the most significant turning point in history was from the second millennium into the third millennium. From the 1990s into the 2000s, we had the most significant pieces of culture, the greatest movies, some of the greatest music around that time period, at least in the 90s. And that makes people who are my age, we were children in the second millennium, and then we had a coming of age, age 13, whatever, in the year 2001, give or take months or years. And so that makes us the quintessential millennial, Generation Z. And the thing about generations is all the traits are inherited accumulatively. So, for example, millennials have traits of the silent generation, the greatest generation, the baby boom generation, and the baby bust generation. We have all of those things into one package, and then Generation Z has all those four plus the millennial trait, like the stereotypical millennial traits. I'm gonna turn off the camera. So what I've been doing is consulting with the elders of the baby boom generation, and they had a very extreme impact on culture as a whole. Also, this guy, his name is Chrysler, like the car manufacturer, Harry Chrysler. It's spelled differently though. He is the chairman of, he runs, what's it called? I don't know if it's at Berkeley in California, one of the, comparable to Ivy League schools on the other coast of the United States. It's called, I don't know, it's like the Center for Historical Stuff or something. Anyway, so he had Conversations with History, TV show. And thankfully, it does show when they were recorded because they're very timeless. I've consumed untold amount of this show. I mean, there's thousands of episodes, maybe hundreds, I don't know. Each one is about an hour to 2 hours. I just can't say enough about how great this show is. He was sort of preceding Joe Rogan. And so anyways, here's just one particular one I'm going to pick out of all the lectures that I've heard, all the conversations.
I came out here from Detroit.
Ought to I preface it. So here is Leonard Schlein. He's sort of a half and half doctor, as in So his interests go from art to physics, and I think it might be this guy who mentions when he says the art of war in different words. He says artist award, like award, kind of like on this book, it has this national bestseller thing on it, whatever. That's an award. The artist award, and it sounds just like the art of war. I'm trying to think of a quote. It might have been in that book that I read of, I think it was one of the United States presidents. It might have been Winston Churchill. I'm not sure who. Anyways, one of the first person who mentioned art of war quote. There's so many good quotes that I've heard. Anyways, I just want to point out how
everything was fried, and when I got out here, everything was.
Okay, so he says at some point in his life he moved to Detroit. Wait, no, I think he grew up in Detroit, and everything was Freud. That's Sigmund Freud, probably very likely mentioned in this book as well. And then he says, when I got out here, meaning to the West Coast, California, everything was
I became very
Carl Jung. And that is sort of the protege apprentice of Sigmund Freud, probably also mentioned in this book. Just for, I don't know what's sake. Let me see if I can find it in the index. I'll just do a walkthrough of checking through the index. So for example, here's another protege of both of them. He's much lesser known. And so if it's on page 444, I can find out, if I go to the S where it says the strategy list, or does it not? Yeah, no? Yeah, it does. Okay, so page 444 is, wow. It's going to take a while to find. So I'm looking, page 393 through 91, I'm getting closer. Strategies of psychotherapy, that's on the topic. I'll have to check that out too. Anyways, so I don't know if I'll be able to find it. The last time I mentioned this book, I mentioned Emerson. And what's so interesting is how I said how my cousin Henry David Thoreau, like for real, we share a great-grandfather, his fourth great-grandfather and my 10th great-grandfather, so relatively speaking is not that much of a difference. Even though Henry David Thoreau was born towards the end of Napoleon's life, like 18... it was either like 1821 or he was born in 1817, and because Napoleon passed away in 1821, exactly 200 years ago. Anyway, so his mentor is Ralph Waldo Emerson, and how I sort of mentioned the initials of Ralph Waldo Emerson would be like Ralph Waldo Amerson. That's sort of the joke. And some of the most significant people in history are barely only mentioned once. So it's almost kind of a blessing. I don't know if I should say blessing. In any other book, it would be sort of insulting. In this book, some of the most significant people in history are only mentioned like once, very briefly. He's trying to conceal his intentions, the author. So anyways, he's trying to conceal his source of power, try not to reveal. Anyways, I don't know, just funny language. Ralph Waldo Emerson. So he's actually mentioned twice. I was looking at that, I was like, what is that? That's in the preface. So... And then I saw all this other stuff. It's like, wait, is that all about him? No, it's not. Is that all Emerson quotes? No. So let me find out what it is, because I always forget. XXII. Oh, I found it. It's on the last page of the preface. And it's up here in the very top. What does it say? Nature has made up her mind that what cannot defend itself shall not be defended. So, what Emerson's greatest work was, that he's most well known for, is self-reliance. He could be considered like the first self-development author, one of the earliest. You know, there was Common Sense in the 1700s, and then in the 1800s, the most significant book in that genre, whatever, was Self-Reliance. And I will talk about that in a minute yet. Let me go back to the 1700s. Ben Franklin, I think he got most famous for Poor Richard's Almanac. And my 10th grade grandfather that I share with Henry David Thoreau, his fourth, is named Rich Church. And he had a father named Rich Church. These two guys were from a place in London, the city of London, in England. The son helped found Massachusetts Bay Colony in like the 1630s. And when I traced that lineage back, I've traced it all the way back to like the 1200s, like just following the line of fathers. And I can go in multiple like directions, or multiple like lines of heritage, whatever last names. Shoreditch, London, has a very significant. I keep thinking that when I look over here, I see like my phone looks like it's the camera's closed itself, like my other camera. The standard camera just sort of closes. So, anyways, Shoreditch, London, has a significant history. And it has to do with like when William Shakespeare in the 1600s was writing his plays like Hamlet and Macbeth. He had the first time his plays were ever played. At this point in the 1600s, there was a prohibition on theatrical performances, or at least in theaters. So it's sort of like how in the 1900s in America we had a prohibition on drinking alcohol and partying. It's January, so I don't know if everyone else is just as partied out as I am. Now it's my birthday month, so it's I don't know, it's kind of annoying to have a birthday right after the holiday season in some ways. So anyways, they had a prohibition on acting and pretending and stuff, and so it's weird. The first theater that Shakespeare's plays were ever played at was in this place, Shoreditch, London. Right now, Russell Brand lives in Shoreditch. It's just a little like suburb just outside of the city of London. Might be inside, I don't know. So, in my opinion, like the reason that Henry David Thoreau was sort of singled out during his life, that he did, like what he did, the things that he did and he wrote, was, I got a new hat, finally. First hat that I've purchased in years. It says DC, it's a skate company. So, Henry David Thoreau's most well-known piece of work is called Civil Disobedience, that had a resurgence during the Civil Rights era of the 1960s. My cousin received untold amounts of praise from Martin Luther King Jr. himself. So I'm sort of in the same category of them, just without, just because. And I don't know what else. He's kind of like a person who is, when there's a meme of hipster music, it's like, oh, you haven't heard this band that only the people in the know are going to know about. That's sort of what Thoreau's like. He's really large of a figure in the Northeast, or whatever it's called, New England area, especially Concord, Massachusetts, where he grew up and spent most of his life. they have like places named after him. You know, I don't want to get into all that. I only found out about this last year, and when I sort of made the connection with how I saw on that whatever myfamilyfromthepast.com whatever, I got the notification and I started looking into it. We have this shared, the one relative that we really share is this grandfather named Rich Church, who might have been one of the earliest founders of Massachusetts Bay Colony, and therefore the United States like itself. Well, where was I going to go from there? I don't know. Let me go back to this. Maybe I'll just, before I go back to that, go to the calculator. So, in the year 2016, I discovered, it was in January, this calendar. It's called the Hebrew calendar. And, you know, there's another meme going around online that the United States Air Force is thousands of years, hundreds of years more advanced than any other country. It's almost like, you know, from our SR-71 Blackbird and our B-2 bombers, it's like no one can keep up with that. And it's sort of a meme going around. It's hard to understand the humor here, like with, on that YouTube channel, it's a lot of professors and people like professors sort of just having a extremely enlightened conversation, if I'm just going to be honest. The humor is so like high flying over everyone's head. It's like hours later, it's like, oh, that's the funniest joke. It's like laughing hours later. Like the greatest forms of comedy doesn't result in a laugh immediately. It's like a delayed thing. So, for example, I had this Fallout game. There was something I had to mention while I pulled up the camera. I don't remember now. This Fallout game here. Just when that became a concept in the 1960s, the baby boom generation was just coming into consciousness. That is the funniest thing. Like the joke here is kind of like, and it's like falling out, like falling out of falling out the couch, laughing, rolling on the ground, crying, laughing my effing A off, or whatever. It's like LMFAO, you know, LOL, laughing out loud. That's what the idea here is of Fallout. The ultimate joke is like, sort of like I finally watched that music video of Goodbye Horse's Q Lazarus Band, and the symbolism there, you know, I don't think when they wrote that song and made that music video, they knew it was going to be included in like a horror movie of the 1990s that became an extended meme. It's extended itself into the third millennium. Those are the pieces of culture that I'm trying to grasp onto, is stuff from the 1900s and the second millennium that has been transported into the third millennium and the 2000s. So anyways, this Goodbye Horses, she says, in the lyrics, the lead singer, she says, I heard a door slam. I'm going to go upstairs. You back? Where to go? Just go in here. Some of my recent vlogs are sort of like, why am I doing that? Like in the bathroom. I don't know. I'm thinking about having a new setup where I have a TV and I sort of make a lecture with use of the TV, with either a computer or a phone hooked up to it instead of a book. I'm going to turn the camera off. Anyways, so in that song, the lyrics are, rolling on the floor, lying on the ground, crying. And when it's sung, it has like a more potent I don't know, it's compelling when she says what she says. It's almost like the memes themselves of laughing out loud or LMFAO, LMAO, whatever, LOL, are from that song solely. Anyways, I don't know. I look different in this light. I'm gonna turn off the camera. Well, so I have a sound machine in the other room. All right, so I have a sound machine and whatever. So I have this Claude Monet, sort of like Monet Talks. There's that painter who's known for like removing his own ear or whatever. Wow, that's actually great. I like that because I'm not too high quality. So anyways, that is not a bad setting for a vlog. It's like I'm in the painting of Claude Monet. Anyways, so I'm gonna disable the camera. Well. Okay, so let me make this personal about myself. Oh, no, before I make it personal about myself, I have to go to the calculator. Anyway, so I first discovered the Hebrew calendar in the year 2016, January. It's a very, significant moment for me personally. And it turned out to be the year 5778. And so on the Hebrew calendar is 3,762 years more advanced than the calendar that we use. And what's so significant about that is in the year 2021, it's either 21 or 22. And I was subtract, what was it? 3762, yeah, that's easy to remember. 1740, what is, 2022? 1740? Oh, I went the opposite way, so I have to do 3762 minus 2022, I think. No, that's even, I have to add it. Plus. Okay, plus 2022. Normally, it's not that, so yeah, it's the year 84. So it's finally the year 1984. We can find out when 1984 was by adding 3762. That was in 46. Okay, and the book was written itself in 1949, or at least it was published. Orwellian is a word for that. It took at least a couple of years for me to separate. I had fused in my mind George Orwell, Orson Welles, War of the Worlds, reference to the World Wars, and the Englishman who wrote whatever book that was, and that movie about not leaving Las Vegas, something like that though. What's the name of that movie? And that guy. I can't think of it right now. Normally I can though. Anyways, okay, so I'm supposed to make this personal. So let me go back to YouTube. Alright, so personally, there's two main sort of cult followings that I have been closely monitoring, okay, for many years. And if I have to make a disclaimer, the thing about cult followings is that generally, the front men, the guys who are most foremost of these cult followings, are not I don't know how to say it. There's a guy named Dan Berendt who made a YouTube channel who was talking about this way before Zachary Hubbard. And as far as Owen Cook goes, aka Tyler Durden, there's Ross Jeffries, the creator, of the self-development subculture of the pickup community. And so what I wanted to do was, I wanted to say how, just some things that I've learned from Gematria Effect News. I've been following it for around that same point. In 2016, when I discovered the Hebrew calendar, by January 2017, I had discovered the Gematria YouTube community. And so this video is sort of for 325 truth. So it's like 325 truth is a social media site for the truth community. And the thing about Owen, aka Tyler Durden, is that he is the most honest person online, and he has been for a long time, since this was a DVD seminar from the early 2000s. And he points out how he's reacting, he's sort of replying in DVD to, in that animated movie The Incredibles, the villain character looks just like him, and his name is Syndrome, the character. This was when like one animated movie could have a huge impact, like Toy Story, and now in 2022 it's like animated movie would barely make any waves. And Ross Jeffries looks like the hero character. He's the founder of Ross Jeffries is like Noah of the pickup community, and Tyler Durden Owen Cook is like, I'm trying to think of a biblical name that starts with TD or O or C. It's not important. He'd be like Moses. Anyways, so he just started reaching out in the manner of Noah to sort of reach out to more mainstream things, and I don't know. I would have never mentioned. Here's another guy who both Zachary Hubbard and Tim from Timcast wear this winter cap like I'm wearing. But long before that, Mel Gibson did this conspiracy theory movie, this winter cap thing, and tried to make like it's sort of like the humble idea of like a social media guy who just wears like Mark. What am I gonna say? What do I say? Just the hoodie, the standard hoodie of like a social media guru, or not guru, CEO, whatever. Anyways, so what Zach mentioned yesterday, this is a video from yesterday, and he mentioned the first, middle, and last name of Gerald Ford. Okay, so what I've learned, from following the Gematria community and closely monitoring it, is that our words are rather meaningless. If I could just very briefly tell what the whole shtick of both of these things are, because I've been closely monitoring them for so many years, I can summarize like very briefly so that others wouldn't have to. I'll put in the hard work myself. So what he does is he can take the most innocent statements that people make, whether it be in writing or in videos or anything, the most innocent statements of a poet or anything that's like a romance song, like the most innocent, like good, kind-hearted statement, and translate it into, it's a psychological thing. So the whole idea of gematria is that we're always thinking in words. Neuro-linguistic programming is sort of what spawned the self-development subcultures of especially Tony Robbins. Initially, he was a neuro-linguistic programming defector. He said it was too much like a church, so he had to leave and created his own following. And eventually, Ross Jeffries did the same thing and started the pickup community. So the idea is that even when we consciously think we're having like the most pure thoughts that are outside, elevated, enlightened thoughts outside of like our animalistic urges, is that we always have these animalistic urges like inside our mind that can be translated into gematria in very simple terms. Our whole language is based around this. And so, anyways, words are important in everything. They're more important than almost anything else. The language that we use, and even, for example, like in sports, there's generally zero words. You know, like in football or basketball, there's really no words happening. It's just sort of sub-communication, and like it's sort of like a dance or something, sort of like a choreographed fight scene in a movie. There's not a whole lot of words, yet the name of the teams, the name of the players are like very important. The name of the city that they're from, those are the three most important words in any sports game. Well, in professional sports at least. And in politics, more than anything else, is about words. And, you know, it's just a word game. Before there were video games or audio games, like with recorded music, there was just word games. It's as old as time. Ancient human tradition, whatever. And, okay, so what? Okay, so what Tyler mentioned in that was the most significant. Like a lot of, I've been very reluctant to speak on medicine. One of the most common memes of last year was from, I think it originated from South Park. It was called a face diaper. And so what Owen did was he translated that into what people are really thinking, what the ultimate meaning of that is a mouth filter. And so the idea is like a book editor, a person who's a songwriter is going to edit their words in a certain way. They're going to put a filter on their speech. And the motivation behind that can be seen in the gematria effect. Here's like as much motivation as people need, whether it be reward or punishment, whether it be, you know, the potential to become famous or a millionaire, or, you know, the exact opposite of that, being very unfortunate. Being very fortunate or very unfortunate is what gematria is all about. Well, I don't know because after so many years, it's hard of monitoring the gematria community. It's hard to know if what initially captured my attention was he would take the most innocent statements that people would make, explaining themselves, whatever it may be, and he would translate it into gematria terms that it means. Here's what they're really thinking. They're thinking about human or animal. I don't know. It's hard to put into words. And ultimately, it's very hard to understand initially, and it takes years of understanding. So, I want to talk about group psychology. So let me go back to my hat. Like on my hat, it says the word Ford. On my hat, it says Ford. I don't know if that can be seen. Can it be seen? Can that clearly be seen? It says Ford on my hat. And what all the people who were talking about Ford Motor Company leading up to the election where Gerald Ford was elected, I think just after Nixon. After Nixon served 2 terms, Gerald Ford was his vice president, and when Nixon resigned, Ford was like very briefly a president. And then Jimmy Carter won the next election. So he didn't have a full term. And so what Zach Hubbard did yesterday in his video was he told the real name of Gerald Ford isn't Gerald Ford at all, yet it's sort of how celebrities change their name when they become famous. The idea of any one person's speech is really not that significant unless they have a large following, or that's not significant. It's only significant when it becomes a meme and people start mass repeating it on a massive scale. So a word like, if everyone was saying mouth filter instead of mouth diaper, the idea is people have to watch what they say and mind their manners. It's just the same thing. I mean, it's just solid advice that's lasted, the test of time, tried and true advice. If it was possible for me to change something about human society and culture, it would be something like that. To change from saying like stuff that has a negative impact and something that has a more positive impact. I could just foresee that would have a positive impact if people would start monitoring their speech and filtering what they say so as to be, back to the Robert Greene books, more powerful, more seductive, and more strategic in warfare, or just strategic in general, in life in general. What else? Let me go back to YouTube. So, all right, is that enough of a, so I probably said about half of what I had to say about the two, like, cult followings that I've been closely monitoring for many years. So, I'm sure there's more. Anyway, so let me finish up here, and maybe I'll go into the other videos.
And I remember my former wife used to say, God, you really read weird books, And
I already showed that. So the idea was this guy,
it's amazing.
even though he's a surgeon, like the whole video he talks about psychiatry. So he, from Detroit, everything was Freud,
interested in Eastern philosophy.
And then Eastern philosophy and Carl Jung. They're two of the most significant psychoanalysis.
And in Detroit, everything was Freud.
Freud was the initial. Freud was like Ford. Okay. So as I mentioned, all the talk about Ford Motor Company is what ultimately led Nixon to winning his 2 terms, because his vice president was like having a vice president Ford, Gerald Ford. And even though that wasn't his real name. So just what we had in the 1960s as humans, human culture, we had the initials. In the 1960s, there was RFK, JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, just guys with the initials, like the X, the J, the F, the K, the M, the L, whatever, the R. There's only like 5 letters there, and there's 4 guys. So what had John F. Kennedy, JFK, elected was it Gerald Ford? That's his name. Okay, so Fitzgerald, John Fitzgerald. I'm like ranting here. I'm excited. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Gerald Ford. These are the 2 guys. This is how groupthink works. This is what most people will call cult behavior. We have a solution to that, or not we. The pickup community and self-development community has a solution to that, and it's called having core confidence. So I don't get my confidence like most people get their confidence from being a part of a group and being around people that are like-minded and similar, and that can lead to very negative behaviors. That's why, like RFK said, if people wouldn't congregate, the government wouldn't have to punish them, whatever, publicly shame, punish, whatever it may be. We develop a core confidence so that I have this confidence no matter if I'm by myself, like I am now. Self-reliance, right? And I'm trying to think how I got there. I know I had just mentioned RFK, and so I mentioned him again, his quote, "You wouldn't congregate," from the JFK phone calls from the White House. Okay, so Carl Jung, J-U-N-G, is when millennials were introduced to that, it was Boston George, aka George Jung, J-U-N-G, from the movie with Johnny Depp titled Blow. Sort of like Pablo Picasso, like Claude Monet, or Pablo Escobar. That's what that movie's named for. So Jung is the J, Freud is the F, so that's JF. And who's the 3rd most well-known in human groupthink doctor? Is Kevorkian. So he was just in the news recently. I can't remember if it was positive or negative on his end. I can't remember what it was about. So J, F, and K, Jung, Freud, and Kevorkian. Those are the three most significant doctors in that realm. And so early in like 2006, on MySpace, I wanted to see if there were other David Petrinos. And there turns out to be, like if I Google search my name, you know, going all the way back to over 15 years ago, it would pull up, there's two Dr. David Petrinos. And so virtually there's nothing I could do with my given name, God-given name of David Petrino. You know, there's David Petraeus, even though that's probably the most similar sounding name. If I'm not mistaken, he was interviewed on this Conversations with History TV show before the media scandal, whatever, preceding that. And anyways, so there's really nothing that I could do to make a larger impact than the doctor's David Petrino. And that's why I have Fallout over here, because it's a similar thing. So I'm going to go ahead and change the video to the next one. So I just took like a 20-second clip of a few sentences of this guy, Dr. Schlein, and I turned it into however long it's been, at least 30 minutes, 41 minutes. So now I'm going to show just the opening scene of Fallout 3. What's so funny about this game is that it's almost like developers, I don't know if they knew, but they could have known that I wouldn't have played this game until like it was like 13 years after it was published. I don't know what to say. I had initially, I don't know what to say. There's an opening scene that I just recently discovered this game because it's finally affordable. It wasn't affordable for a long time. I always saw it promoted. I just never even wanted to purchase it because it was still expensive. But now that it is so inexpensive, the opening scene is here. Here's the doctor. He's like the character, the player's father. So the player can choose whether it's going to be a male or a female. Here's the opening scene where the player is born. Okay? So in the opening scene, the player is born, most reminiscent of a scene from Metal Gear Solid. You can see he's wearing a face filter, and he's watching what he says or whatever. And then it goes to 1 year later. So maybe I was wrong. Don't look straight into the... Okay, so here, it's like baby steps. At 1 year old, being in the playpen, it's like, here's what everyone experiences something similar to this in their life, but they don't remember it. They wouldn't be able to recall it. So Total Recall is another thing. Over here, that's a movie. Both the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and the Colin Farrell movie remake. Many years later, I'd recommend. They're similar to this. So it goes to 1 year old, and then after 1 year old, here's the like bar mitzvah type thing. 9 years later, plus one. So at 10 years old, the idea is here's a surprise birthday party. Okay, so it's sort of like a bar mitzvah. And still, here's the doctor who's the father. And that is actually going to be most like me. I'm more like the doctor character in that game than the player character. I'm like the guy who's difficult to find or whatever. I don't know if David Petrino, the real doctors, have a cult following or a following online. So anyways, she is the daughter of the guy who runs the whole Fallout shelter. And at the very beginning of the game, the player has to escape by defeating the guy who runs the whole thing and taking his key to escape. I think it might be this guy right here. The Overseer is what he's known. So it's clearly like a cult language there. It's difficult for most people, I think, to comprehend the idea. We just call it group think. Those are like the group minds of the masses. It's on a very low level. It's not very enlightened at all. the groupthink of professors, when they're together, is sort of like a think tank. And anyway, so it goes from the bar mitzvah. So that's most similar to like the 13-year-old bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah of the coming of age ceremony. And then it goes from age 10 to age 16. So what is it? Oh, the Pip Boy. So that character must be significant. This stuff has some strange parallels to my own life, besides just the idea that I'm sort of like this guy, like the Doctors David Petrino, the real guys. I'm going to try into Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 from the late 1990s, and also Wasteland from 1988, the year I was born. Wasteland is the original, and it's Electronic Arts, intellectual property. My father is the overseer, is what it said. That was Amata. Alright, so here it fast forwards to when the player is 16 and taking some kind of a test. And here's, GOAT has become a meme greatest of all time. The GOAT question. I'm just trying to show how it... Here's like the final time transfer. When it goes from the player goes from age 10 to age 16, I think. Oh, no, it's not. There's still one more when the player grows up to age 19 after taking this test. It's sort of like 1950s greaser culture. The funniest thing is that in Fallout 3, there's at the very far east, there's a place called North Chevy Chase and East Chevy Chase at the very east of the map. And then at the very northeast of the map, there's a place named Dave, the Land of Dave or something. And there's like a school where the school teacher is teaching the school children about the greatness of Dave and his cult following. It's incredibly strange. Just recently I found that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's almost funny now. Like, it could have been predicted that I would have eventually found this stuff, and it would have been when the game became affordable. So anyways, there's so much into that. That's just the tip of the iceberg as far as that game goes. Yeah, so I'm at the very beginning stages of that. I don't know anything about any of this stuff over here, so. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and show the next. At what point does Hubbard? Here's Hubbard at the top right. At some point yesterday in his live stream, he mentioned Gerald Ford's real name. Oh, I'll be able to see it from the thumbnail, I think. I almost went into the chat and said something. Here's Gerald Ford's speech about the idea of eventually a female president in 1989, so that was the year after I was born. And he sort of is predicting way ahead of time the first female president. And I don't know what to say other than a lot of the unnatural traits that I have. For example, like I'm on Facebook, I'm really into video games. There's an election every 4 years, so it goes 2024, 2028, 2032, 2036, 2040, 2044, 2048. As we get into 2048 and 2052, those are all going to be presidents that grew up on video games. Hoping that our country is still a country at that point. Those presidents are all going to be video gamers. They're all going to have a Facebook profile right now in 2022. A YouTube channel, probably even. A lot of the traits that I have are going to be shared with future presidents. I would say from 2050 onward. So I think that's about it. I think I wrapped up all this stuff pretty great. Here's that movie trailer. I just want to show how Mel Gibson sort of set the trend for a lot of stuff that's happening in the culture right now. With that winter cap, I'm sure there's some other person who has, going back before this movie in 1997. He mentions Howard Hughes and Aristotle. That's funny. Anyway, so that's all for now. Hopefully I can check out Wasteland, the video game where Fallout originates. And of course the ultimate joke from the 1960s that I don't think a lot of people from that time period understood was like falling out of your chair laughing. Funny. So anyways, that's all. Whoops.